what is happening to the human's consciousness who's undergoing surgery like that? Say if that same part that you have cut stores the face and name of his or her mother, you're cutting through that memory to get through to that tumor.
Everything you go through, it's not just whether memory is stored there or not. You may be going through an area that is connecting A and B. When you cut through that, possible that you may lose some aspects of your memory, some aspects of, you could. I mean, not always. And you never know because, the main memory will continue. People after tumor surgery are living normal lives and everything else. But we don't know what they've lost inside.
Do they know what they've lost inside? Probably
Even
not.
they will not know.
Because you don't know what you don't know. Then.
Yeah, well, you don't know what you don't know. Elon Musk had autism as a kid, but this man is the richest man in the world today and he changed the way the world thinks. A minor version of autism is something called attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Some of these people could not get through college and school. They didn't choose not to, whether it's Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. So they didn't graduate from college, but they had a brilliance that was different.
Maybe it's the evolution of the human species.
Exactly.
It's our first episode with a surgeon, a brain surgeon to be precise. This is Dr. Alok Sharma. I think this episode will appeal to everyone who's into any of our health-based conversations of TRS. This will appeal to you if you're fascinated by the world of biology, and it'll definitely appeal to you if you're just someone like me who's all about accumulating further knowledge. He's a subject expert. So we didn't only speak about the brain or neuroplasticity or neuroscience. We also spoke about the near future of biohacking, everything from stem cells to genetic modification, and this one from one of the leaders of the medical fraternity in India. This is Dr. Alok Sharma on TRS. Dr. Alok Sharma, welcome to TRS.
Thank you, Ranveer. It's great to see you.
You're the first surgeon that we've ever had on the
really?
show.
Okay.
Yeah, we've not actually had a surgeon before you. We've had a neurologist, Dr. Sid Warrior, who helped us understand the mind a lot better. And I feel like every human has that one subject that they're more interested in than other subjects. For him, it was neuroscience.
Okay.
Is it the same for you?
Absolutely.
You're a lot into neuroscience as compared to all these other things you do, and you do a lot of other things as well.
In fact, before, just prior to MBBS, somebody asks you, what do you want to do? You say, I want to become a doctor, I want to be an engineer. And I should say, I want to be a neurosurgeon. Even before I entered medical college. So I was very clear what I wanted to do.
Why?
The human brain and mind fascinated me. There was something very fascinating, something very mysterious. And it's the brain and mind that makes us who we are. We are different from all the rest of the living creatures on the world because of our planet. And each one of us is different. You are different from me and I'm different from you. Not because of what's in your muscles or your bone or your skin. It's because of what's in your brain. So the human brain has always fascinated me. So then I chose to make that my vocation.
Okay. Yeah. How does it feel for the first time when you open up a skull and then start operating on that pink tissue?
It is an awesome, even today after all these years, it's overwhelming. It feels very special that, you get an opportunity to actually get up front and close with the most sensitive, the most powerful, and the most mysterious creation on the planet. There is nothing more fascinating on the planet than the human brain. And to have the privilege to be able to do things with it, it's a blessing.
Do things with it?
Oh yeah, you do things with it. You operate. If there's a tumor, you remove it. If there's a blood clot, you remove it. In kids who have, autism and cerebral palsy and people who are paralyzed, I do this thing called stem cell therapy or cell therapy. So it's, being able to modulate the brain and the mind. That's fascinating. It's something, no matter how much you do, you sort of never get over it. It's exciting. It's thrilling. Every day is a new day.
Okay. I have some very raw, stupid questions probably. How do you break open a skull?
Oh, so that's not very difficult. What you do is you make holes in the skull. So when I started doing neurosurgery, it was mechanical. We had a drill, we used to go around, drill. Now everything is, of course, electron. There are electric drills. So you make holes, make hole 1, hole 2, hole 3, hole 4. And then there's an electric saw where you connect the holes. And the skull opens like a flap. Just flip it open.
Wow. Like you're making a door in the skull.
Yeah, exactly. You're making a door in the skull. Yeah.
Okay. So you choose a position.
Or depending on where you want to go. If it's a tumor you're doing, if the tumor's in the front of the brain on the right side, then you open the door above that, so on and so forth. So you have to open the door exactly where you want to work.
What's the weirdest thing that's happened to you during a surgery?
Weirdest? No, nothing weird. You can't have anything weird happening when you're dealing with the brain. Nothing weird can happen because everything is planned. You can't make any mistakes. There's no scope for error there, So everything is planned, structured, and you go according to a method. So nothing really weird could happen. But the weirdest thing I've ever done, okay, and that's on record, it's published, is I've removed the largest amount of worms from the brain. And that's so big. My hand, I don't know if you can, this much. So it's published in a scientific paper. Worms, worms, okay? The worms collected and formed cysts, and there was a person whose half the skull was full of worms. And you had to go in and take out this big, I'd love to share those pictures with you, Sami. You see it and you get blown. Like this was in the brain, and the guy's alive and doing well, So I have on record the largest collection of worm cysts removed in the world, is done by me.
What did that guy do to get those worms up there?
This is, these are worms which come, from the food you eat, the water, worms come into your intestine. Sometimes they reach the brain. And when they reach the brain, they form cysts and then you have to remove it. So this was like a really large collection. So that was the weirdest thing I've ever done because, can you imagine what it's like? You open the skull and you have literally a palm full, palm full, this collection of worms which you take out. That's weird, right? That's published in a paper as well. So I've published that as a scientific paper.
I think you answered that question well. Okay. Wow. Is this the reason you're supposed to get dewormed once a year? That's what they say, right? Like I remember this from biology textbooks.
Yes,
like everyone should take a deworming
Everyone
pill.
should take a deworming once a year.
But if it's made its way to your brain, does the deworming still hit the worm inside your skull?
Well, if you deworm, the worms won't get to the brain. So it's a preventive thing.
Okay. And everyone probably has worms.
Obviously, if you live in the city, all of us will have worms.
Really? Yeah. So it's just a healthy thing to get dewormed once a year?
I would say so. I would think
Damn. Okay. How did you realize before the CT scan of the same person that it's likely a clump of worms? Like, was he behaving strange or...
No, he came with symptoms of headache and, a whole lot of raised pressure things, but the worms had broken through the skull actually. So the thing was so large that the skull had broken open. And so he had come with this weird swelling, so we suspected, but we didn't know till we did the scan.
You suspected worms?
Yeah, because it did fit. It's just a picture. It was weird, and there was a history in the past and all of that.
I want to ask you a lot more about the future because I feel on the internet we keep talking about AI, NFTs, crypto, all these very internet savvy things, but not too many people are talking about biotech. Like all these advancements happening in your world, in the world of medicine, in the world of doctors. So maybe a great place to begin would be a very quick mapping out of the neurological body of a human being. So correct me if I'm wrong. There's a brain, there's a spinal cord, and there's a nervous system that is spread all across your body. Is it made of like the same tissue roughly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's basically
Similar,
what.
yeah.
So when you're a neurologist or a neurosurgeon, you're kind of dealing with that same one tissue.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Until now, it was believed that you can't regenerate any of it.
And we've shown that you can.
How do you regenerate it?
Okay. So like I said, in the 1980s, when I started reading about it, there was nothing. There's no drug, there's no medicine, there's no injection, and there's no surgery. See, all the other tissues in the body, like the skin, if there's a cut in the skin, you can suture it. The heart, you can stitch. The intestines, you can stitch. The bone, you can fix. Everything you can put together except the brain, because the nerve cells, once they're damaged, there's no way you can stitch the brain or the spinal cord. You can do it to the nerves in the hands and legs, but you can't do it in the brain and spinal cord. And that's what led my mind to thinking an alternative path, And for this, I have to give a little credit to my teachers. So one of my teachers at the KM hospital, Dr. Manu Kothari, he was a professor of anatomy. He was unique. He always taught one thing only. And his whole thing was, do not completely believe the written word. whatever's written in your text is what somebody's written. It's not necessarily the truth. Question it. So from the very first year when we entered medicine, and I got to know him closely, and I used to spend a lot of, like this conversation, I've had lots of conversations with him like this. So he had a completely alternative way of looking at everything, including cancers. And the thing that don't go by what's written in your books, what everybody believes is what everybody believes. There's a difference between that and reality. Find your own reality. And I think that fundamental training has been responsible for a lot of what I did.
I think joy is a great place to begin a neuroscience conversation. Happiness, joy, success.
Yeah.
I actually think success is an overhyped word, and
Absolutely.
it's much more about the daily joy and happiness you feel.
Absolutely.
Which is why I want to ask you about stable relationships. Now, this could even be stable friendships that you've maintained throughout your life. Are there neural patterns that are formed because of a steady romantic partner or a steady friend group? Like when you're growing up and growing old with the same boys or girls that you were with in school or college, does that kind of a brain structure become a happier brain structure if those same neurons are firing?
Okay. So there's a very interesting question. And you have to understand that apart from neurons, there's also what is called neurochemistry. So we have a whole lot of chemicals in the brain, neurotransmitters, neurochemicals, and they are responsible for a lot of what you're talking about. So, when you're in a new relationship, okay, there is a certain set of neurochemicals that are that are created, which lead to the excitement, the thrill of a new relationship, and these are well defined. They're actually well defined. So, in fact, love has been completely explained through neurochemistry. It's a fairly long thing, and I wouldn't want to go into the details. But there's a set of chemicals that is responsible for the initial excitement and thrill of a relationship. Now, this naturally tapers off. It cannot sustain. And then
dopamine systems.
Now, the next is, so the dopamine and oxytocin, there are some hormones that are responsible for long-term relationships where there is warmth and companionship and friendship and togetherness. So there are two sets of neurotransmitters, those responsible for the initial excitement and those responsible for sustenance. Now, what happens is, we expect the same. When a relationship or a friendship starts, you expect that same excitement to continue forever. It cannot. The neurochemistry will not permit that. So it's very important to shift into the more dopamine, oxytocin, the more warm, caring type of friendship and relationship, because it's all got to do with the brain. So it's just understanding that what you start off with cannot last forever. You have to bring that shift. So this is all completely explained by neurochemistry.
Okay. So initially you're more dependent on dopamine and oxytocin to feel excited about your relationship. And then later, is it about serotonin?
Yeah. So it's actually there are about 15 or 20 chemicals.
Oh.
They're all different chemicals.
Okay.
But I'm just, to make it easy, broadly I divide it into two.
Okay.
The initial excitement and the sustenance, the caring, the warmth, togetherness. They are two separate sets when we understand that. So once we just understand that every relationship has to shift from one to the other for it to sustain long. If you expect the initial to remain, then the relationship will break down.
Okay. Is there a difference in the structure of the brain or the working of the nervous system in someone who's been in a long-term relationship?
No, not in the structure, but definitely in the neurochemistry. So definitely.
They're happier people in general?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's the basic consensus.
Yeah. So it's a balance between, okay, so I'll explain to you. The brain itself, there is what is called the higher brain. That's the cerebral cortex. That's the brain that's responsible for the thinking, the logic. That's the brain that makes us human. And then there is a brain inside, the lower brain, that is similar to the brains of animals, for example.
Right.
So if you take away our cerebral cortex, our brain is very similar to that of a horse or a dog or a cat, so we call it a hot brain and a cold brain. The hot brain is the impulsive brain. So, hunger, thirst, sex, anger, all that comes from lower. And there's a higher brain that tells you what is good, bad, right, wrong, what to do, consequences. And this, a lot of unhappiness comes because there is a mismatch between what these two brains want. Okay.
Explain this more.
For example, it is good to wake up. Your higher brain will tell you it is good to wake up early and do a morning walk and do yoga. Okay. Your lower brain will want you to sleep. You understand? So the lower brain is dependent. We call it the hot brain and the cold brain. The hot brain goes by instant gratification. The higher brain thinks of the long-term consequences.
Animalistic lower brain versus humanized higher brain.
Exactly, yeah. Now, these are two brains. They both are brains. They are both our brains. They are not different. But it's just that structure. So humans we have evolved from lower animals. Okay. I mean, life started, there were fishes, and then there were amphibians, and then reptiles, and then lower mammals, and then us. So our brains have also evolved. Okay. We are the only ones to have a higher cerebral cortex. The only ones. The capacity to think, the capacity to plan ahead, the capacity to execute. That's with us. But the lower brain is still the same. It's the instinctive brain, It's like, for example, some junk food is not good for you. Your higher brain tells you it's not good. Your lower brain is hungry, wants to eat it. Right? You may know that, a particular form of tobacco is not good, or a drink is not good, or too much drink is not good. But at that time, you just want it. So it's this mismatch between the two. And now, meditation, yoga, and all that is supposed to give control of the higher brain over the lower brain. That's the whole purpose. I don't believe that one should do that. I think what one needs is harmony. The lower brain is our brain as well. It's not a lower brain. It's actually situated lower. It's not actually a lower brain. But yes, it is very similar to the brains of animals. So one needs to, once you understand that you have these two, now you can bring about balance. You can actually make judgments knowing what is controlling you.
What is the call to action here for a college student who's thinking of their lower brain and higher brain? Is it to meditate?
No, it is to have so again, I'm going to keep repeating, once you have a clear idea about what is it that you want to do, then your higher brain there's a balance between the two. Okay. So if you know that you have to study to do well in an exam, now doing well in your exam, I'm just using that as an example. If it is important enough, your higher brain will automatically overrule the lower brain. When your lower brain wants to sleep more and your higher brain says, get up and study. Okay. If what the higher brain wants is important enough, it will automatically override the lower brain. So in other words, having something important in your life to do. I mean, if you can't, it's difficult to, today's kid, you can't tell them sit and meditate. Nobody wants to meditate. Okay.
There's a quote I read once that helped me a lot to stay disciplined through my fitness journey or my meditation journey or my business career. It's a simple quote that I think encapsulates exactly what you're saying, which is that, okay, the quote goes, discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want the most.
Exactly. Very
same
true.
Thought?
Absolutely same thought. And there's a neuroscience to it. What you want the most is the higher brain. What you want now is the lower brain. So there's a neuroscience to what you're saying.
It's basically you reworking that same neural pathway. If you have a long-term goal, it's one neural pathway. Keep reworking it.
Absolutely.
And eventually discipline becomes easy because you realize, that's where I have to be anyway.
Yes.
So it's the actual neurological life hack for a happy life.
Absolutely. You got it right. You said it perfectly.
I think that's what Gaur Gopal Das said about the core message of the Bhagavad Gita as well. He said that life is full of ups and downs, but your sense of purpose will get you through.
Absolutely. Correct. Perfect. So what I'm talking about, having a definite chief aim in life, sense of purpose, but I'm trying to structure it more finitely.
Sure.
Just saying have a purpose is very generalized. And today's generation, like what purpose? I mean, but if it is definitive, it could be anything. It could be trying to save the white horned rhinoceros in some African. It may be that,
Sure.
It may be trying to find a cure for cancer. It may be work. It may be anything,
Okay.
But it's got to mean something to you, because then your higher brain takes charge.
What does the brain look like when you cut open a skull?
Oh, it's very soft. It's like cheesy, not cheesy. Sort of very soft, like a
Scrambled
sponge.
egg.
Yeah, okay. That describes it well.
Burji.
No,
Soft
not
burji.
really, but it's well structured. It's not pieces. It's like beautiful. It's like, it's not pieces. It's smooth, but it's soft. It's very soft. So when you have to go through it to reach tumors and all, it's very soft.
You have to cut through the surface to reach
Yeah, you have
tumors
to cut through
sometimes.
so you have to find an area where you don't do much damage, and you have to go through that and get to the tumor.
What is happening to the human's consciousness who's undergoing like surgery like that? Say if that same part that you have cut stores the face and name of his or her mother. You're cutting through that memory to get through to that tumor.
So we try to avoid areas which are what are called eloquent. There are some parts of the brain that we believe aren't that important. Okay, but you're right. Everything you go through, it's not just whether memory is stored there or not. You may be going through an area that is connecting A and B. Okay, and when you cut through that, it's possible that you may lose some of that. It's possible.
Lose what?
Some aspects of your memory, some aspects
Wow.
of you could. I mean, not always. And you never know, because the main memory will continue. People after tumor surgery are living normal lives and everything else, but we don't know what they've lost inside.
Do they know what they've lost inside? Probably
Even
not.
they will not know.
Because you don't know what you don't know then.
Yeah, well, you don't know what you don't know.
So have you seen someone's personality change after brain surgery?
Yes, they do.
Like what?
Change. Very often family people say that the person is different. They just say they're different now. The person who is, especially we notice this after accidents. We have a lot of, because I devoted a significant chunk of my life working at the Sion Hospital, LTMG Hospital. And there we used to get the largest number of accident patients. And people do tell us that, even if you save their life, the person is different afterwards. They just say different,
But like what? Like you mean less talkative?
No,
Usually?
it's different for everyone.
So it could be even like angrier.
Yeah. In fact, that happens more often. Yeah.
Really? Like someone becomes angrier usually after brain surgery.
Not always. I mean, not always. But the thing, they're different. For example, they may be a little more reactive. They may be a little more less tolerant. They may be quieter sometimes. So each patient is different. And, this has to be, but, as far as we are concerned, when somebody has a tumor that's going to kill them, you remove the tumor, you save their life. And as surgeons, we sort of, well, you saved your life, okay? And then, unfortunately, overall, our medical system is not structured to go into these aspects. You save somebody's life, that's it, okay? Now, you go home and take your radiation, chemo, or whatever else. But these things do happen. And
Conversely, pre-surgery, when someone's just starting to develop a brain tumor, what effect does it have on that person's mind?
it depends on which part of the brain. So we have a frontal. There's something called the frontal lobe. We have a parietal lobe. We have an occipital lobe. We have different lobes of the brain. Each lobe has got different functions. So depending on where the tumor is, people will have different symptoms.
Like maybe your hearing goes away, your eyesight goes away
Exactly.
suddenly.
So we have a tumor at the small part of the brain called acoustic neuroma. So there the hearing goes away first. And if your tumor is in the front part of the brain, then it'll affect your personality,
Like what's the worst case of personality switches you've seen because of a tumor?
Many, I mean, like completely different. It's so varied, no? It's so completely varied. From some people develop like obsessive compulsive, I mean, they've come to us with psychiatric, very, very often, these patients are with a psychiatrist with psychiatric disorders, and they do a scan and they find a tumor. It could be just causing depression. It could be causing abnormal behavior. There's so many things that may be happening, and not just in the mind, even physically. You can have a weakness of the hands and legs. You could have vision going. If it's in the front part, you could have loss of smell. So they're like different combinations of what brain tumors can do.
Damn, loss of smell.
Yeah.
Something you don't truly associate with the brain. You associate always with your nose. What else have you found out about the brain after you've become a neurosurgeon that you didn't know?
That the brain has tremendous, it has got plasticity,
It can change.
Yeah, it can change. So we've seen people with severe damage recover, and this is something I've specially focused on. So earlier I used to work with patients who had gone into deep coma after head injury. And then we tried to first stimulate them with something called neurostimulation. We used to put electrodes into their cervical spine. and then there's a pacemaker, and we would continuously give electric currents, and this would give electric. These are people in coma. Okay, so we tried that. We didn't get very good results. We got some results, but not very good results. And that apparatus was very expensive. This is something developed in Japan called dorsal column stimulation. But now with my current specialty of stroke stem cell therapy, we've found some amazing improvements. We've got this kid. I mean, he's just the most phenomenal story. He was like 22 years old, and he was a shippy working in a ship, 22, 23, and he was on a height somewhere, and he fell down, and then he fell and was in deep coma. Complete, totally non-responsive. Totally.
What is the biology of going into a coma because of a fall?
All of the brain gets damaged, but especially there's a lower part of the brain called the brain stem that is responsible for our consciousness, for our wakefulness.
Your medulla oblongata?
Yeah, exactly. The medulla. You know about the brain. So the medulla and the pons and the midbrain, these are called the brain stem. So when the medulla is damaged, you lose consciousness because there is something inside that called the reticular formation. And I shouldn't get too technical about this.
No, get technical. What is it?
The reticular formation. So in the medulla, there is a network called the reticular formation. And this is responsible for us being awake or not being awake. So when you sleep, your reticular formation switches off. When you wake, it's like the switch to keep you awake. Now it's permanently damaged, you go into a coma. That's like a permanent sleep. So anyway, this kid so they went all over. They went to all the hospitals in Mumbai. They tried all the treatments. And then for about a year, this kid was completely in coma. And then they came to me. And everybody had told them nothing can be done. And then I did cell therapy for him, stem cell therapy, along with hyperbaric oxygen. We gave him deep oxygen therapy, ozone.
But his reticular...
It's completely gone.
Okay.
Fired. He was in coma, complete, no responsiveness.
What do you mean fired? Inflamed?
No, damaged. I mean, physically damaged. Yeah, whatever. We worked, and of course I have to give credit to his father and uncle. There are two people who gave up everything. This kid is from Lucknow, and he came to us, and day and night they worked on him. And we gave him cell therapy a couple of times. We gave him oxygen-based therapies, hyperbaric. We gave him ozone therapy. We did a lot of physiotherapy. And over a period of almost a year, this guy has become fully conscious now. He's fully conscious. He's talking. He's reading. He's ambulatory. I mean, this is what happened to Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher, the driver, he actually had a similar fall, and he was, but that unfortunately happened 10 years ago. So I don't think we can help him.
He's still in a coma,
Still in a coma.
Skiing accident,
yeah. But a similar thing with this guy, we've got him out. Okay, this is miraculous. This is the power of cell and stem cell therapy to be able to recover the damaged brain, which was unthinkable. And the story you should... Somebody should actually do a story on just their life. I mean, this is a story of grit, determination, not giving up. The whole world tells you cannot save your son, but you do not give up. And then, they found us. After some time, their company stopped, the treatment was to be paid by the shipping company, and they stopped paying. And, but we continued to treat him. We said, okay, doesn't matter. We will not take anything from you, but I'm going to make this guy, get back. And he is today. Just yesterday they sent me a video of him, sitting up and talking and everything else. So it's what was earlier believed to be impossible is now possible using cell therapy.
What did he say first when he woke up?
He woke up over a period of time. Okay, he woke up. He didn't wake up like one fine day. Okay, he woke up over a period of time. But now he has a full conversation. He knows me by name. He talks to me. He asks questions. He wants, because over the years, his hands and legs, everything have got very tight. And so he wants to know when he'll be able to walk. And, he asked me those kind of intelligent questions. So
what did he make of the time span that went by?
Oh, he doesn't remember that. Yeah.
So does he remember the fall?
No, he doesn't remember.
No.
He doesn't, that part is gone.
Imagine just waking up one day. You don't even know what's happened to you. And your arms and
but
legs.
he knows. So interestingly, when I talk about his future, what he wants to do, I actually asked him, do you want to go back to the ship? He clearly said, I do not want to go back to the ship. So he knows something happened on the ship. He was on the ship when he fell. So he reacts very strongly to it. No, I do not want to go back on the ship. That means he remembers the ship and something went wrong. He doesn't remember anything in between that.
Wow. Okay. Are you working him up to being exactly what he was?
Yes, he will be. He's
Exactly what he
almost like 70% there, and he's going to get back to what he was before. Yeah.
Let's take a deep dive into stem cells.
Yeah.
From literally the 101 till whatever it is in 2023, up till what it's going to become in 10 years' time. I think only 1 or 2 people on this show out of 500 episodes have ever even brought it up. Chris Gethin, who's a world-renowned trainer, brought it up because he said that all his inflammation on his tennis elbows, shoulders went down because you take stem cells and you inject it into those joints. And then there's a treatment that follows over the course of 1 or 2 days. And eventually that joint heals. A lot of my friends, even myself, like I've been weight training for a while, you do end up getting inflamed joints. So I know that that's one of the most basic applications. And the only other thing I know about stem cells is that, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, they're found in babies' umbilical cords, and I believe they're found in your bone marrow.
That's right.
Am I right?
Absolutely.
You extract them from your own bone marrow. Stem cells are the cells that can become any other cell in your human body.
Very accurate. Yeah.
It can also become a nerve cell.
Absolutely.
But you guys have only figured out how to turn it into a nerve cell in the last 5 to 10 years.
Yes. Longer than that. Yeah, okay.
But I mean, like application wise, probably in the last 5 to 10 years, which is why I said the Michael Schumacher thing. Anyway, so you extract it out of your bone marrow, and then I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens in your lab.
The story of stem cells is fascinating. Okay, it's not just what's happening now; it's what the future is going to be. All right. When I was a medical student, what I'm already doing now would come under science fiction then. If in the 1980s we spoke about this, it would be pure science fiction. But it's happening. So what exactly are stem cells? Now, in the world of medicine, we have 2 broad treatment interventions. We have drugs, medicines, pills, injections, okay? And we have surgery. You go, you cut, remove something, suture. So there's medicine and there's surgery. Now, there are many conditions where there are no drugs that can help and there's no surgery that can help. Of all of these, the most important are in nervous system diseases because neurological conditions, the brain and the nervous system was believed to not regenerate. So once there was damage, there was no drug you could give and there was no surgery you could do. Now, but stem cells are cells which, not being a drug, not being surgery, what they do is they repair damage in the body biologically, So it's like, imagine if you have a cut in your hand, how your wound heals. That's a biological healing, all right? So stem cells help in biological healing, right? Not as a drug, not as a surgery, but cell-to-cell interaction. This is the way the body had meant to heal. It's a natural system of healing. Now, we have stem cells in different parts of our body, but they take care of the normal wear and tear. So you have a certain injury here, there, and the local stem cells will help heal it.
Local stem cells.
I mean, you have stem cells. You have stem cells in the brain. You have stem cells, in your hair. You have stem cells. They're very small amounts. They're just for the local wear and tear. Okay, but if there is a severe damage, like if you have a brain injury, you have a spinal cord injury in adults, there are some conditions that are potentially fatal. One such condition is something called motor neuron disease, something that Stephen Hawking had, the famous scientist from Cambridge. There was no solution to this. These people just died. But because there was no drug and no surgery. But now with the availability of stem cells, we can actually help them. But the really more exciting area, the area which is now in the last few years become my focus, is actually children. Because in children, there are certain neurodevelopmental disorders such as autism, cerebral palsy, intellectual disability, where the brain from birth itself, is not functioning appropriately. And because of that, there are a whole lot of symptoms because of which these children cannot lead independent lives. Now, the thing about autism, and this is something the world is just not recognizing, there is something in the USA called CDC, Center of Disease Control. They are the ones who give all the statistics on COVID and everything else. They've got the most accurate figures in the world on disease. And if you just see the figures of COVID, 10 years ago, 1 in 160 children had autism. Okay. I'm talking CDC figures on autism. 3 years ago, it was 1 in 54 children. 2 years ago, last year it was 1 in 44. This year, it is 1 in 36. Okay. So from one child out of 160 children having autism 10 years ago to 1 in 36 today is a phenomenal increase. At this rate, in the next 20 years, every third child will have autism.
Why is this happening?
Now, that is $1 million question, because it's got to do a lot with multiple things. There are multiple factors there, some very controversial, some, not clear. So it's got to do with lifestyle. It's got to do with a whole lot of things. There are some people who said vaccines are responsible for it, but that's, again, very controversial. It's not something in the medical we talk much about. There's talk about mobile phone radiation causing it. There is talk about modern diet causing it. There's conversations about people having children later in life, because the older you get, if you have children, your child is more likely to have autism. So the causes of autism are many. So
biologically speaking, what happens in an autistic brain?
Yeah, exactly. So this is something we've done pioneering work on. We were among the first in the world. Surprisingly, despite the fact that there is such a high incidence of autism, nobody had really looked deep into the brains of these children to identify which parts of the brain are not working. And we actually did this research. There is now newer brain imaging. See, earlier we had just CT scan and MRI scans. But now we have something called PET CT scan, positron emission tomography CT, in which shows you which parts of the brain are working normally, which are working less, and which are working more. All right. And it's a color scan, so it's easy to, the green color is normal, blue is working less, yellow is working more. So we have identified that, these areas, the deep area of the brain we are talking about, the limbic system, the medial temporal lobe, and the small brain, the cerebellum, we have found, because we have done scans on over 3,000 children with autism. And we actually have clearly identified, almost for the first time in the world, which parts of the brain are not working appropriately in children with autism. And we've published this in a scientific paper in the World Journal of Nuclear Medicine.
Was it the lower brain, the animal brain, that was not very active?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that means the higher brains are much more active.
Exactly.
Which is why this whole angle about autistic kids being geniuses and
exactly.
All that. Wow.
Elon Musk had autism. Do you know that? You Google him. Elon Musk had autism as a kid, but this man is the richest man in the world today, and he changed the way the world thinks, because these people have, and I'm so happy you picked this up, because most people don't pick it up. You looked at what positive they have. The whole world is looking at what they don't have. And, Albert Einstein had autism. You know that, okay? And many of our big tech geniuses who run some of the biggest companies in the world, they didn't have friends. A minor version of autism is something called attention deficit hyperactive disorder. And then there is learning disabilities. Some of these people could not get through college and school. They didn't choose not to, whether it's Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. So they didn't graduate from college, but they had a brilliance that was different.
Maybe it's the evolution of the human species.
Exactly. This is exactly what I've been talking about. And people don't, this is the next step in human evolution. And how do we know it? Because when we do the scans, we not only find parts of the brain which are not working, which we sort of anticipated, but there are parts of the brain which are working more. And we actually found, and this is shown in our published paper, that the brains of children with autism actually start functioning higher in the earlier years. They're functioning more than what is called neurotypical children. And then they decline. So now we don't use the word normal anymore. We say neurotypical. People like you and me are neurotypical. Children with autism are neurodiverse. There's a change in the mindset that, just like somebody can be tall, somebody can be short, somebody can be fair, somebody can be dark, somebody can have a brain that is like what we have, and somebody can have a brain like a person with autism. So we use the word neurotypical, neurodiverse. But normal kids actually start off lower, but then proceed to grow. So what we found is that when we give these children cell or stem cell therapy, that blue part of the brain, which was the blue, it's not actually blue, it's on the scan appears blue. It's called hypometabolic. That's brain that's little less active, functioning less. That this gets activated, this gets repaired, and this becomes functional. And once it becomes functional, these children don't just start leading what is called normal lives, they all have something peculiar, different, unique to give to the world, in which they completely excel. Things which are unimaginable, things that you and I cannot even imagine, now start functioning. So first, to go back to your question, how do stem cells work? So you answer it yourself. The first thing about stem cells is that when the stem cells have the ability to multiply, okay, and when they divide, they make a copy of themselves, another stem cell, but they also become any other cell of the body depending on where you put it. So if I take a stem cell and I put it in the nervous system, it will become a nervous cell. If I put it in the muscles, it will become a muscle cell. So depending on where you put it, it becomes that. So this amazing property of converting into other cell types, okay, and the ability to multiply. Along with that, what they do is they release certain positive chemicals in the body called growth factors. These help in the healing process. They also attract fresh blood towards them, called angiogenesis. This combination of being able to multiply, to divide, to release growth factors, to get fresh blood, they reduce the inflammation in the body, they modulate the immune system. There are several mechanisms. Basically, this helps repair what is non-functioning. And there's no drug that can do it. There's no surgery that can do it. Now, you mentioned about bone marrow and umbilical cord. So I just want to clarify that. Broadly speaking, cell or stem cells are of two types. What is autologous? That means when you take from the body. So from the body, you can take either from the bone or you can take from the fat. These are two areas from which you can actually get stem cells. Then there are stem cells which you take from. So autologous is you take from your own bone and put it back in the body. Allogenic is when you take from somebody else. Okay, so for example, the umbilical cord that connects the mother and baby at birth, this is very rich with stem cells. So there are companies that go and collect this. Normally, this is thrown in the garbage. In some children nowadays, in fact, most children, they actually save it. So if you save it, you can use it in the future for the same child. But there are other companies that collect it from everywhere and they package it, and it's available as a package sort of umbilical cord thing. So this is somebody else's cells and then your own cells. Now, we don't use the package umbilical cord because I believe your own cells are much better than somebody else's cells.
For your body.
For your body. Because one, they're your own cells, so body will accept it. Two, it's fresh. There's no preservative. You just take, what we do is we take from the bone marrow, we filter it, we run it through machines called centrifuges, isolate the stem cells, and within a few hours put it back. Whereas those are preserved, they belong to somebody else, they are cryo or frozen, and they add a preservative. So if I ask you which is better, take an orange and make fresh orange juice or have a canned orange juice, a fresh orange juice is better. So that's the difference between umbilical cord and what we do, that is autologous. Now the thing about autism is that once you repair, the other thing, very important, what we do autologous, we can inject it in the spinal fluid. So, our brain, it continues down as the spinal cord. And surrounding the brain, there is a fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. It's a fluid that circulates, it's continuously circulating. So what we do is with a little needle prick, we inject it into the lower back, into the fluid, because this fluid carries it to the brain. And when it goes to the brain, the part of the brain that's not functioning properly or that's damaged, it pulls the stem cells towards it.
Automatically.
The normal brain doesn't. It's like, let's say you are hungry and I've just had food and, somebody comes here with food. What's going to happen? You're going to make a grab for it. I'm full. I won't take it. So the body is like that. The body tissues they're not greedy. The parts that don't want it will not pull the stem cells, but the damaged parts will. And there's a lot of research to show that the stem cells home in to the damaged area actually has the stem cells come to them. So we inject it in the spinal fluid so it goes directly to the brain. Now, the umbilical cord cells, because they have a preservative, you cannot inject it in the spinal fluid. You have to give it intravenously like an injection. Now, when you do that, it goes from there to the heart, then to the lungs, from the lungs back to the heart, and then the heart sends it to the brain. So there's a long journey. And in fact, a lot of these stem cells get trapped in the lungs. So for the first time in medical history, there is now a solution for autism, which is affecting 1 out of 36 children in America. In India, the figures are about 1 in 100, but I think that's because we aren't picking up enough. I mean, the documentation is not so solid and concrete. Actually, I think the incidence is much more.
Why do you think it's much more?
No,
Much more than India. Okay.
No. The official figures for India is 1 in 100. Official figures for America is 1 in 36. I think because they document more properly. Here, a lot of kids in the villages and all that, it will not get diagnosed. Sure. Now, what is a matter of great pride for me, like serious pride, is that the world's first scientific PubMed index paper on the role of cell therapy in autism is published by us. Okay, the world's first paper. The second paper came from China, the third from Italy, the fourth and fifth came from Duke University, America. Now, that is something nobody can take away. There can only be one person who climbs Mount Everest first, or one person who lands on the moon first. Everybody else follows. So now all the papers on cell therapy or stem cell therapy in autism have to cite us because we are the first to publish. And when I say the world's first paper, I never say I published the world's first paper, although I'm saying it to you. I always say the world's first paper on cell therapy in autism came from India. That is a matter of pride for me, that our country published the world's first paper on something new and completely innovative. After that, we have a total of 15 other papers on cell therapy in autism. And our second one after that was published in a very prestigious journal. All are published in very prestigious journals. And we have a total of 106 scientific papers, which is the largest in the world. So this is an area where our country is leading the way, not just me.
It's our country. There are a lot of foreigners actually come to India for stem cell
Yes,
treatment.
I have treated patients from 75 different countries. 75.
Do they basically come here because it's more budget friendly here?
They're coming because it's not available there. Our results are better. And also because, of course, it is more budget friendly. But you have to understand, people travel 20 hours. I get patients every week. I get patients coming from America and Australia, from England. They fly 15, 20 hours to come here. Okay. So firstly, this treatment is not available everywhere else. It's not available as free, the way it is here because a lot of the Western world hasn't accepted.
Why?
Okay. So there's a long story behind it. What happened is that in around 2001, President George Bush, he had banned embryonic stem cells. To explain to you, we do from the bone marrow, but you can also get stem cells from the embryo. You have test tube babies, you have IVF. You should be familiar with IVF. So in that, you have what is called spare embryos. Okay, so you can actually make stem cells from that as well. Now, as you're aware, the Roman Catholic Church doesn't permit abortion or family planning. In fact, in America, there's a law. The Supreme Court actually, passed something on abortion. So abortion in many states is not allowed. That is because the Christian thinking is life starts at conception. When the sperm and egg come together, life starts. So anything you do after that, you're killing a living person. So that's the whole family planning abortion debate in the Western world. George Bush had banned federal funding. He said the government will not pay for research for embryonic stem cell. But people's hearing is, what people remember? George Bush banned stem cells. He didn't ban stem cells. He banned federal funding. He said government will not pay for research for embryonic stem cells. Again, what most people don't remember is when Obama became president, one of his earliest executive decisions was to lift that ban. Okay. Now, we are not using that. Okay. That is like, the whole mistake, the whole mess is right now, it's like beverages. Beverages has got alcohol. It's got canned juice, Pepsi, Coke, etc. And it's got homemade orange juice. They're all beverages. And what you're doing is you're taking something for alcohol and implying it for homemade orange juice. There's no connection. That's the mistake there. So what happened because of that in the Western world, in America, England, Canada, all over Europe, this therapy did not develop. It developed in India, China, Korea, and Japan. We 4 countries are the leaders. India, China, Korea, and Japan. We are way ahead of the West. Now, the West, they just can't accept it. Because we are pioneering. I've done close to 13,000 patients already in the last 15 years. They are just starting, at some of their facilities, they're just starting to do the work.
In medical careers, experience plays a huge role.
Yeah. So that is happening. And the problem is not just that they aren't doing it. Our own doctors, we have what I call, and I say it openly, normally, we have what is called a colonial hangover. So when somebody with a white skin and a tag from Harvard, Stanford, Oxford comes and says, well, everybody's blah, 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 they are praising him, doing the arti, But when the same thing comes from Asia or India, they don't have the same respect for it. So I call it colonial hangover. It really is like that. We are pioneers. The world is following what we are doing. We are being quoted when patients go to doctors from there. They are actually being told to come here.
Also, I'm assuming that in the long term, if stem cell therapy really takes off in the mainstream, which I anticipate that it will,
It is. It is. Yeah.
it will affect big pharma badly.
Oh, you're brilliant here, because this is so, you're touching the key points. One of the reasons that I was going to mention about it, that stem cell therapy hasn't taken off, it doesn't have backing from big pharma. In fact, a very senior executive from a multinational company told me, says, Dr. Sharma, you are an existential threat to us. I said, like what? So he said that if you make everybody okay, who will take our medicines? I'll
So
give you,
the big medical companies, the big medicine companies don't want stem cells to take off.
he used that word existential threat. That's huge. I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine in Jordan. And we have a meeting, all us stem cell therapy doctors for neuro, once a year we meet in different parts of the world. And 3 years ago we met in America, and he was actually standing on the stage in front of hundreds of us, and actually big, tall, tough guy, and he was in tears. You know the story he told us? This guy was using stem cells to reverse diabetes. And I've been to Jordan, I've met his patients. He completely reversed diabetes. Completely, okay? People on insulin, all off. He said it publicly in front of all of us, that he was threatened by the companies manufacturing insulin, because it's $1 trillion, not directly, but via. And he was told, either you stop your work on diabetes, we'll let you continue your other work, or we'll shut you down completely. And he said, I had to shut down. Okay. Now he's saying this publicly, all right? Because that insulin is $1 trillion industry. They cannot have that be replaced. So here is somebody from Jordan telling me that he had to stop his work on stem cells and diabetes because, I'm not being, threatened like that, but yes, I have been attacked.
Really?
I've been seriously attacked. They've made so much effort. In fact, 400, I'm saying it publicly, 400 people in this field, in the field of autism, have got together. And I'm not saying it, they gave an article in Times of India saying we have 400 signatories. They're opposed to this work. Why? Because there's an entire economy that sustains on these kids never getting okay. Let's say you're running a rehabilitation center and these kids are coming, a child cannot talk. He comes to you for a lifetime of speech therapy. I treat him, he starts talking, he stops coming to you. So your business is directly affected. So there's this very strong lobby that is making all out attempts to shut me down. Okay. But we got our results, and they made attempts. They were unsuccessful. And who stood by us? Our patients. When people made these attempts, our patients stood up. They signed petitions. They went on petition.org. They wrote to the Prime Minister, Health Minister, and Commissioner, and it was flooded with support for us. So eventually what matters is people. If the parents of children who have improved are standing up and talking for us, that's real, okay? Because no parent is going to support something that has not worked for his child. Whenever you do anything innovative, whenever you do anything different, you challenge the status quo. There is an established business model of people who are sustaining on something not happening. Okay, when you threaten that, they are going to rise up and speak about you. And the real pity is that all these people, none of these people, they should come in. If you say you're working in this field, and there are people coming from all over the world here, they've not even once come and asked me, okay, to share our results, talk to us, speak to us. In fact, at least you should be wanting to learn and know what is going on. No, there's just an opposition. So anything new that anybody does, there will be resistance. There will be opposition. People will try to shut you down, but you just have to believe. You have to believe in yourself, to believe in your work, and most important, you have to, it's the people who are improving that become your support and your structure. So we have completely changed the thinking in the field of autism and neurodevelopmental disorders, from nothing can be done to the fact that we can almost not just completely reverse it, but when you reverse it, these kids not just go back to independence, you start seeing the special abilities in them.
So the special abilities thing is something I want to deep dive in, but first I want to put forward a hypothesis and correct me if I'm wrong medically. You spoke about how, traditionally speaking, when a child is autistic, initially in his or her life, the growth of the brain and the functioning of the brain is greater than the average kid, and then there's like a dip.
Yes.
That's the traditional way that things work. Do you think that dip could be happening because of the medication given to the kid?
Yeah, it could be medications. There are lots of theories about it. It could be lifestyle, diet, stresses. There are a million causes as to why. There are some people talk of genetics. A small percentage, 15 to 20% kids,
Okay.
there's a genetic background, but a majority of it is lifestyle. Sometimes it's during the birth process. Like, if the birth, that's why the role of gynecologist is just so important, because if there's a little hypoxia, less of oxygen to the brain of the child when the child is being delivered, that can cause the kind of brain damage that we are seeing now in autism. So there could be many reasons.
What about the special abilities, especially with the kids you've treated, where you've got someone so-called out of autism,
Yeah.
or you've just enhanced their actual abilities? What are the special abilities you saw?
Okay, so there are so many of them. I want to talk. So there's this young little girl from Bangalore, and she was quite severe. Okay, she didn't have speech, she was not going to a normal school, but her mom realized early on that she's a wizard with numbers. Okay, special ability with numbers. And then, of course, she took stem cell therapy, and after taking that, she started improving. And then the mother gave her special coaching in maths. Right now, this kid is so brilliant. She does engineering level math. She does math that is. She's just 7 years old. Okay, she will do the tan, cos, all that complicated stuff, and she does it brilliantly. But most important, I'm not going to believe this. You will not believe this till you actually see it. Okay, I refuse. When the mom told me this is happening, I didn't believe it. It's only when the child was in front of me, and some 25 times I tested. This child is the ability. You think of any number. Think. She'll tell you what you thought. But this is only for numbers. It's not for colors. I mean, if you name a color, animal, she won't. But for numbers, she has the ability to read your mind. Now, she has a great ability in math. Okay, it's a beyond Einsteinian ability for math. Now you can't explain this. How do you explain a child who can read? You just think of a number. Then I thought maybe I'm thinking. Sometimes you wonder whether you thought the same. Then the mother, you write it down so that you can cross check that it was the same. It's the same every time. All right. So this is just one example. Okay, we have other examples. I have this child from the Maldives who, again, not going to school, no speech, and this, he took cell therapy, started improving, and the father noticed that this child is a wizard. He just loves space, planets. Okay, he has no normal conversation. He can't do regular stuff, but you talk to him about Mars, Saturn, and something happens to him. Okay, this guy is in his element. And so the father did something interesting. He got an entire library of books on space and started reading with them. And today this child has not only improved completely. Okay, he's now he's in the second standard. He was not going to school. Now he's in the second standard and topping the entire class, not just his class, the whole second standard, all the divisions. He's standing first and is a wizard with numbers. You tell him, 10 raised to 8, and before you can do it on a calculator, this guy will have told you. They've got amazing, they're called savant-like mathematical abilities, stuff that you can't even imagine. Then we have dozens and dozens of kids who've got this mind-blowing ability. You tell them any date in the future, they'll tell you what day it is. Okay, you will say 4th July 2050, and in a second they'll tell you it's Wednesday or Thursday. And it's so mind-blowing how they do it. Yeah, it is so completely mind-blowing how you do it. We had a kid who was from England, and the kid had no speech, zero speech. After doing the cell therapy, the mother, they were from a Muslim background, and she would give her the Quran on a YouTube channel. This kid came back to us after 6 months. He could recite, and you're not going to believe this, the entire Holy Quran by heart without looking into it. And I said, where do these kids get it? So it was there inside. I mean, I can go on endlessly. We have a kid over here who had this amazing ability with chemicals, and his father sort of figured out that he could, and he first gave him a little kit, and then he made a workshop, and today this guy has a factory, making 40,000 later. There's something he does with some ethyl something and creates a chemical which has got commercial value. He's 11 years old. Okay, he's a millionaire. He's running a chemical factory. So I'm just giving you examples.
Okay.
There are so many such examples of brilliance that you and I cannot even imagine.
So let's take a small deep dive into what we've already discussed on this episode. You said that autism is basically the lower brain being less functional than the higher brain. Lower brain is responsible for all your animalistic behaviors, all your instinctual behaviors, food, sex, anger, sudden emotions. And upper brain is responsible for creativity, imagination,
thinking, executive function,
strategy, mathematics, maybe. So all these kids have a very active upper brain.
Yes.
And
more active than you and me.
Okay. Now through the therapy, what you're doing is you're kind of making the lower brain functioning, active enough to kind of match up to the upper brain level. That's what the outcome of stem cell therapy on autism is.
I'll give you I'll just convert this into a simple to understand example. Let's say you're a great athlete, fantastic athlete. You could win the Olympic gold medal, all right? But you have a fracture of the leg. Now, you forget running. You can't even walk. You cannot even stand. So, because a question people will ask is, well, we are saying they have these great abilities. How come we don't see it? My child is not talking. My child is, having behavioral issues. My child can't read and write. And you're saying that he's going to become a Elon Musk type of wizard. That's exactly like a great athlete who can't run because of a fracture. Have you understood? But if I fix the fracture, now I can see the athletic qualities in you.
Okay.
So now, once we fix the brain earlier, people, all over the world, you'll be surprised. Nobody had identified the brain damage. We were among the first to publish a paper to show the world, hey, listen, these parts of the world aren't working. And we published it as a paper. Now, not only we published which parts are not working, and that's published in the World Journal of Nuclear Medicine, we now have a solution to it. So it's only when you fix it that you can see the special qualities. You can't see the special qualities, like I can't see you as a great athlete as long as you have a fracture.
Okay.
Have you understood that?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
What will happen? Okay, firstly, I want to just confirm this thought with you.
Yeah.
Autism is kind of a spectrum, right?
Yeah, it's called autism. It's called autism spectrum disorder. Yeah.
So, if you're very high up on the spectrum, you have a severe case of autism.
Yes.
As is the case with most of the kids you treated, I'm assuming. But lower versions of that would be ADHD, which you also see a lot.
Yes. Yeah. Then there's learning disability. Then there is, dyslexia. Yeah, exactly.
Now, you're saying probably Elon Musk was also on this spectrum, on a lower part of it.
He actually says it. He talks about it openly. Yeah.
What if we give him the same therapy you're giving the kids? What will happen to his brain?
So right now it's of course too late, but had we given it when he was young, we might have seen something completely more different there.
Okay.
Because this works. See, the thing about our therapy, that's the other thing we found, that it works best when you give it early. So we found our best results are below 5, when you give it below 5. The next best results are before puberty. Once puberty kicks in, then we find there's still results, but they are lesser.
Okay.
So it's called early intervention, because this is about neuroplasticity that we are talking about. The child's brain is more plastic. So, when you give cell therapy, you get better results. As you get older, especially after puberty, because the hormone testosterone comes into play and the brain is a little less, it's difficult to modulate the brain.
As in when you're a kid, your brain's like clay and it can be shaped up into however.
Yeah. It's called neuroplasticity. That's why that word comes from clay.
And as you grow older, your brain becomes more stiff.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you are actually fixing their problems when they're kids, is their upper brain also benefiting more?
Yes.
Because of just the lower brain being stronger?
Yeah. No, you are, it's not benefiting more. You can see the effects of it more.
Okay,
I mean, it's not going to make a change there. But the stuff that you couldn't see, let's say there's a child who, a majority of autistic kids with autism can't talk. They can't speak. You can't see their brilliance, if they had a brilliance.
Because then they're not able to express what's happening.
Now, and that's because we've seen that the speech area, on our scans, we've clearly shown that the speech area is not functioning well. Once you can activate that and they start talking, now you can see their brilliance.
Okay. I'm also assuming that going forward, the way science is going, probably in 20 years' time, will you be able to do a version of this on normal kids or on adults in general?
Okay.
What if you do it on normal kids now?
Okay. So that's very interesting. So we've actually had parents come to us saying that, my child is 20th in class and I want my child to come first. So will you give our child stem cells? No, we actually had parents come to us. Now, we don't, because that is not correct. And I think that's misuse of technology. Just because you want your kid to stand first in class, you should not be giving stem cells. That is why we have criteria. So what we have, our work is governed by what is called an institutional ethics committee. This is in hospitals. We have there's a process called there's a committee of outside doctors, senior. It's got doctors, it's got lawyers, it's got social workers, it's got different people who actually give you permission to do what you do. It's called oversight.
Sure.
And this committee is registered with the Ministry of Health in Delhi. So it's a formal thing. Now, so one of the criteria is that we cannot give we have chosen not to give stem cells to people whose brains are normal. That's why we do the scan called PET CT scan.
Why?
Because this is misuse of technology. Okay, this technology is meant to help somebody whose brain is damaged. It's not meant for somebody whose brain is normal and you want to make it better. I mean,
but can it?
Yeah, it would, but it's not. I don't think that would be misuse of technology.
You'd give rise to supervillains.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Now you're trying to play God, and that's not good. Okay, we're here to help people who are suffering, people with limited facility. We want to help people in difficult situations, but we don't want to play to people's vanity. You want a child to come first. That's not fair. It's not fair to push your child into, because the child may have some other skills. Okay, you may not stand first in class. You may be 20, but you may be a great artist. You may be a great cricketer. You may have some other skills. Sachin Tendulkar, imagine if his father tried to make him a doctor. That would have been a disaster, But his father understood very early, this kid is great with the bat. I'm not even sure Sachin passed school, or he definitely didn't go to college. But his father identified his skill set and, let him get into that.
Theoretically, what would happen if you put stem cells into a normal smart kid? Theoretically, what would actually biologically go on in the brain?
I don't know. I really don't have the answer. I guess you'd get better. Of course, now looking at the way cell therapy works, the cells get attracted to those parts of the brain which are damaged. So, if your brain is completely normal, it may be that the normal parts of the brain may not accept it, or maybe they will stimulate it. Maybe they can. See, you have to understand, a higher level of function is not necessarily good. You could become, because you could develop a schizophrenia. You could develop your mind could go completely. Anything, too much of anything is not good.
Fair.
Okay. So that's why you don't want to play around with that.
Sure.
So our principle is, but we've had people come to us. Where people actually come to us and say exactly this. I want my child to come first. Give him stem cells.
Yeah. Till this point, I was visualizing that whole Captain America scene, where he goes in as a skinny guy and comes out jacked.
Yeah. So theoretically, yes, that's possible, but we wouldn't do it. I would not do it. I would not encourage it. And at this stage, especially when technology is new, I'm sure once it gets established, like every good thing gets misused, and there will be people who will find a way around this. So,
damn.
When that happens, that happens.
Okay. How expensive is stem cell therapy?
So it depends.
Rupees.
In rupees. So it varies. We have an entire range. For example, starting from the lower, we do it completely free for all orphan children. So any child who has no parents is done free of cost. All children from tribal areas, interior, we do it without cost. In Maharashtra, we have a particular sensitivity to drought-hit areas, where farmers come in. So we've identified areas. Everybody from there, we do it without cost. Then there's a next level of people who are, who can afford something. So there, it can be done in a couple of thousand, which are discounted rates. We have tie-ups with various trusts. There are all these trusts that help and support them. We have several foundations who help them. Then we have people who want a higher class of accommodation. They want deluxe rooms and they want suites. And then we have patients who come from overseas who want a whole lot of fancy other things. Then it can go into lakhs, because there's a whole lot of other things that are being added, services that get added to it, and there's the stay, and there's a 2-week stay. So we have different options, a 1-week stay and a 2-week stay. There is such a range of costs that you can't put this thing to it. But I have one policy. No child should ever be deprived of this treatment because of money. So when I started my organization, Neurogen, right from the beginning, we had a social worker. Private hospitals don't have social workers, but we had a social worker from day one, because we said we have to cater to every strata. That comes from having studied in a public in KEM hospital and GS Medical College and working at the Sion Hospital. It's been our thing that nobody should be denied treatment for want of money. Okay. So we play Robin Hood. those who can afford it, those who come from outside, well, we charge them in dollars and charge them good. And those who can't, we treat them without any cost.
A guy like me who's 30, who is starting to encounter some small aging related things, like I'm not as strong or athletic as I used to be when I was 22. Is there room for me coming in and taking a treatment from you?
Yeah, so we have, apart from treating neurological problems, we have now, over the past 4 years, we are now working in the field of anti-aging. So I have a separate hospital that's an anti-aging hospital.
Do people mostly come with skin and hair related things?
No. So this is different. So that is like a spa kind of. We don't do that. We do cellular anti-aging. So let me explain to you. Like today we have tools. There's a simple blood test. You can just withdraw your blood, and okay, let me give you a little background. So our cells have something called genes. You are aware of genes? Chromosomes. They are like an X thing, all right? So the tip of the chromosome, like our nail, is something called telomere. Now, when we are born, our telomeres are at the maximum size. As we age, our telomeres become smaller. When now, what the telomere does is it protects the gene. So, when the chromosome divides, it protects it, all right? So that gives you the ability for your body to keep growing. Now, when it reaches its end point, that's the time the cell can't divide anymore. That's cellular death. So you can actually, with the blood test today, simple blood test, predict what your age will be. You can actually predict it.
They measure the length of the telomere.
Of the telomere. So you get a telomere length, and the telomere length tells you what your cellular age is, not what your birth age is.
Gotcha.
Okay? Now, the advantage of that is, one, you know your cellular age. Second, if you do treatments, interventions, you can have a before and an after.
One second. A cellular age could be very different from your birth age.
It is very. So I'll give you my own example. Okay. So I'm 60. Last I was 60, and I did my telomere. I was the first. And it showed my cellular age to be 85. And I got a shock. I said, what? 85? I mean, you've got to be kidding me. And then I said, okay, I've got to do something. So I went into my own anti-aging program, which used hyperbaric oxygen, ozone therapy. I did this for 40 days back to back. This was based
and came out jacked like I'm just messing.
No, really. Actually, not bad. A lot of things improved. A lot of things improved. Okay. But most important, my telomeres in 40 days from 85 came down to 70. Okay. And in fact, the lab refused to issue the report after 40 days. They said, we can't give you this report because 40 days ago you were 85. How do you become 70? So the people will question the validity of our reporting. I said, no, I did all this. Then I continued my treatment for another 40 days and I brought it down to 60. So today, my cellular age is the same as my biological age using anti-aging treatments. Okay.
Is it physically painful, the treatment?
There's nothing. It's all totally non-invasive. There's nothing. There's nothing. It's just pure oxygen therapies, ozone therapies, gut cleansing. It's just nothing. There is no intervention. There's no surgery. You don't take bone. There's no stem cells in this. This is non-stem cell related.
Okay. So you just go into chambers and breathe the air.
No, basically. It's multiple. That's just one part. The breathe the chamber is one part. There are many other treatments that go along with this. So it's all nature based. It's all what is called. There's no intervention. You're not doing giving anything. So I was happy. Now my cellular age is. Now the good news here is that this marking of the telomere shows you that your maximum we can live up to 120. So beyond 120, your body cannot. Our body is programmed up to a maximum of 120. Because your telomeres, so when they do these measurements, they do it on a gradation of 120. That's why it was 85 on a scale of 120 max.
Sure.
You understand?
Yeah.
So technically, if you could bring it down, I mean, the good news here is you could possibly live to 120. You could, okay? That's assuming you don't have a cancer or brain stroke or heart attack or accident or something. So anti-aging is a fascinating field, and there is an entire huge conference every year in Las Vegas. I attend it regularly on anti-aging. You've got some 4,000-5,000 doctors from all over, and there is a lot of excitement in this field that you can actually slow down the aging process, and or at least where it's accelerated because of stress, lifestyle, other things. You can bring it under control.
What will it manifest into on a physical level?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, suddenly you find your mind is clear. Okay, you're thinking clearly. You know what, this brain fog, which you have very often. So the brain fog disappears, Then you start finding yourself physically more active. You find yourself being able to energetically work for long hours. Okay. then you find, of course, at a cellular level, things are different. And also at a, like when you do, because along with the telomeres, we do everything else. We do blood sugar levels, cholesterol levels, liver function, renal function, hormones. We have an elaborate set of tests that we do before and after. What we are finding, and we have, this is going to get published in a paper. So we've just published this into a paper, that all these things improve. So it's not just telomeres improve. Telomere is a manifestation that the rest of your body, it's a marker. It's telling you that the rest of your body is improving. So we monitor everything. So, for example, I got my mom to do it. And of course, her thing, after just a 1 week program, it reduced by 1 year. But I was happy. Technically, I've given my 88-year-old mom 1 more year of life on whatever, that's still a lot. And then, my mom was among the first. I've got a younger sister who had such severe knee problem. Remember when she came for the anti-aging, she came on a wheelchair. Okay, from Delhi. She came from Delhi, had to be escorted on a wheelchair. And after this whole program, not only she improved, she went to Vaishno Devi and walked 14 kilometers up and down, 28 kilometers. For somebody who came on a wheelchair, okay, to walk 28 kilometers to Vaishno Devi is like something. Yeah? And that was, and she says it to everyone. That happened because of the anti-aging treatment protocol she took at our place. So your question was, how does it manifest? My real younger sister, who came in a wheelchair, walked 28, and you've been to Vaishno Devi? It's an uphill climb. It's a mountain climb up and mountain climb down. She could do that. So that is the difference.
What will happen to me if I go through it?
If you happen, like I said, see, you're going to find your mind a little more active. You'll alertness. You know what is mind fog? You're too young to have mind fog. But as you grow older, sometimes there is what is mind fog? Have you heard that word?
Yeah,
it's like a brain fog. It's like, dulling. So suddenly you find your mind sharper. And now we, of course, our program is for people 50 plus. Okay. Because if I tell a 30-year-old do anti-aging, they'll say, what is wrong with you?
I think a lot of people might should actually be open to it. Okay. Honestly. I think people might are very into biohacking.
Yeah.
But anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that, they actually say, there is science to show the time to start anti-aging measures is at 30. Because that's when, up to 30, your body is sort of peaking and then there is a slow decline, of course, depending on your lifestyle, diet, and a whole lot of other things. So that's the time to start doing this. And it doesn't have to be, see, this is not something, it's not like you're in a hospital and things are being done to you. This is a part of, because when you come out of this, you understand the value of natural systems of healing, okay, which I want to just elaborate in a very simple way. So it's easy to understand. What are the things essential to life? Are the things essential to health and longevity? The first is oxygen. If you don't have oxygen for more than 10 minutes, if you're strangulated, you will not survive more than 10 minutes. 80% of all diseases are because of lack of oxygen, right? So if you oxygenate your body, you're going to be younger, healthier. So one of the simplest ways to do it is pranayam. So in yoga, even if you don't do the rest of the yoga, if you just do pranayam, why? Because when you do pranayam, you deep breather. See, you can't change the air around you. Can you change the air? I'm very happy to see plants here. I hope they're natural plants. But yeah. Because the more plants you have, what the plants do, they produce oxygen and they take your carbon dioxide away. But pranayam, what happens is, you see, normally we are breathing now. We breathe shallow. In pranayam, you breathe fully. So if you can just do pranayam every day in the morning, that'll help. Now, of course, because, okay, so look at nature in the jungle. What do you have? You have so much greenery and very few animals breathing it. Bring it to the city. Suddenly you have so many more people breathing and so much less green. And whatever air is there is polluted, is toxic, okay? So we are breathing, there's less oxygen, and that too, what is there is polluted. So we have to, our basis of our anti-aging is hyperbaric oxygen. So what is hyperbaric oxygen? It's basically, right now, we are breathing oxygen at 1 atmosphere pressure. This is 1 atmosphere. Now, when you go into a chamber and you give oxygen, so at 1 atmosphere, see, when you take oxygen, it goes into our lungs. From our lungs, it goes into our blood. And the blood carries oxygen to the whole tissue. Is that easy to understand?
Yeah.
But in the blood, we have 2 types of cells, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. You may have heard of it. And then there is the liquid in the blood called plasma. So right now, what we are breathing, only the red blood cell carries oxygen in what is called hemoglobin. You may have heard of hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is the only thing right now which is taking the oxygen we breathe all over the body. Okay. The white blood cells have no oxygen. The liquid, the majority of the blood is liquid. That is zero oxygen. But when you go in a chamber and oxygen is given under pressure, the oxygen enters the liquid of the blood. So your entire liquid of the blood is full of oxygen. And now when that goes, it goes everywhere, to every nook and corner, and it improves your overall functioning, right? So that is, now if you can't, the ideal thing is for us to be, to live in nature, to live in a place where there's more green. Then you don't need any of this. If you're living in a place where there's all greenery, you don't need hyperbaric, you don't need any of this. But because we don't have that, we are now using modern technology to deliver what nature should deliver. So the first thing is oxygenation. So if you do pranayama, for younger people, hyperbaric may not. A lot of sportsmen are taking. You see a lot of film stars, and everybody's taking hyperbaric as part of anti-aging. So first is oxygen. Second thing for health is water. Okay, you cannot, if you don't have water for a couple of days, you won't be able to survive. So even people who are fasting, they're Jains who fast and all, they still have water. Almost 80% of our body is made of water, and one of the problems is we don't drink enough water. Okay, so we need to drink between 2 to 3 liters of water every day. Just doing that will seriously help us. So oxygen, which is important for survival. Second is water. Hydrate yourself. Drink as much water, because somehow in today's life, you just skip it. You drink when you're thirsty. When you're thirsty and you drink, you're already dehydrated. So you should be drinking preventatively. Like the Chinese, they have a very nice system. Every 1 hour they have Chinese tea. And my Chinese colleague were telling me it's not about the tea. It's that having every hour hot water. That's why they can eat anything. And they don't have so many diseases because they hydrate themselves.
Do you think this hot water, cold water thing matters?
I think hot water is better overall.
Okay.
Overall, hot water is better. So first is oxygen, second is water. The third thing you can't survive without is food. So again, what is good food is natural food, whatever nature gave us. In fact, today even you talk to cancer surgeons, and the first thing they talk in their lectures is diet. That diet has such an important role to play in malignancies and all diseases. And that is because we've shifted from nature. So you have to imagine life in a jungle, and here, what do animals eat? Natural. There's nothing cooked. So everything that we cook and eat causes problems because of whatever is added to it. So a good idea is to, I'm a surgeon. So I like to give I don't give theoretical advice. I give practical advice. So practical advice is, for oxygen, do pranayama. If you can, have as many plants as you can in your house. And if you can't do that, take hyperbaric oxygen. This is practical.
Sure.
Water, very simple. 2 to 3 liters of water. Measure it. See that you drink every day. Third, food. Now, if I tell you eat only natural food, then nobody's going to follow it. Who can eat only fruit salad? The natural food is fruits, vegetables, nuts. What a recommendation is to have at least 3 times a day to have natural food. And the rest of the time, have your regular cooked stuff. So just, like I in my breakfast will have only fruits and tea, and then it's not a good idea to mix cooked and uncooked. Actually, ideally, you should have them separate because the digestive pathways are separate. So if you have 3 natural meals a day, the rest you can have whatever you want, so long as reasonably healthy. So the next thing is to deliver all this to the body, the circulation. Okay, your body, the blood has to circulate for oxygen and food. And because we've stopped exercising, because we've become sedentary, so circulation is slow. So even if you have good oxygen and a good diet, but if it's not reaching the body, so for circulation, you need to exercise. Anything, half an hour, 30 minutes of a walk or a jog or a swim or a gym. Unfortunately, now for exercise, everybody's thinking of just a gym. You go to the gym and do workout. No, anything that keeps your circulation going. A simple walk is good enough. You could skip, you could dance. I mean, dancing is great. Anything that builds up, increases your heart rate a little and gets your circulation going. So next thing that's important is sleep, because sleep is the time of housekeeping, all right, both for the brain and the body. So a lot of our healing actually happens when we sleep. All the wear and tear of the body when we are asleep, because everything else is shut down, there is housekeeping happening. Even in the brain, all that has happened in the day, all the stresses and the strains and the problems and the worries, the mind does housekeeping. It sorts out things, it slots them, puts things in the right place and everything else. Now, if you don't have adequate sleep, what happens is not only is everything all, a khichdi in the brain, but your body also doesn't heal. And the body has a great healing capacity. So anywhere between 7 to 8. The ideal sleep is sleep when without an alarm, without alarm, when you wake up naturally. Because the sleep has got two, there's got a REM and a non-REM. There's got a sleep pattern. So you'll notice if you wake up to an alarm, suddenly you wake up feeling weird and suddenly odd and everything. So sleep is such an important part, of health. It's something we as doctors don't practice. This is the only part that we sometimes aren't able to practice because of our lifestyle. But now, if you can put all this together, so simple, see that your body is oxygenated, see that your body is hydrated, see that you have enough natural food along with whatever cooked food you have. Okay, if you exercise just about 30 minutes a day, keep your circulation going. If you sleep 7 to 8 hours, whatever your body needs, you're going to avoid 80% of your life's problems. Okay. Just by these simple, and they're all free of cost. None of these is expensive. None of this cost anything, because this is natural. This is the way the body is meant to heal. Now, of course, if you don't do all this, there is medical technology to do it. Okay. But you could do all this naturally.
I want to talk to you about the medical technology. There's a conspiracy theory on the internet that says that billionaires of the world get blood transfusions where they use blood from prepubescent children.
Yes. I know about that. Yeah.
Is that an actual therapy?
That's an actual therapy.
Because those kids have highly oxygenized blood?
Yes, absolutely. So
why do kids have highly oxygenized blood?
Yeah, because the younger bodies, of course, what happens is that, it's like the body's a machine. See, when your car is new, okay, you buy a new car, everything is so much better. As the car gets older, it gets more carbonized, things are... So there's actually animal experiments. There are well-defined animal experiments. You take two rats, okay, you have an older rat and a younger rat, and then you just switch the blood of both of them. The older rat gets younger and the younger rat gets older just by transfusing the blood to each other, right? So there's actual scientific experiments and papers on that. So that is actually correct. I'm not sure about the ethics of that, whether this is something you should do or should not do. It's not something we practice, but it is true that, this happens. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's very real.
So in the case of these billionaires, is the blood from the billionaires being sent to the kids?
No, that's being thrown away. So in the research model, they did it just to show that the reverse also works.
Okay, thank God. That would be messed up.
No, you can't get that. They just throw they were throwing their blood away and...
Who are these kids?
We don't know. We don't know who they are.
Human trafficking, possibly?
I have no clue. We've only heard about this, but I know this not from humans. I know it from laboratory experiments that, in our lectures and conferences, we've actually seen data that actually shows that when you do this, everything changes. The heart, liver, the whole aging thing sort of reverses by completely alternating blood. So I'm talking about laboratory work.
Okay.
I've heard it happens in people, but I'm not aware of it. I've never heard of anybody who's taken this.
Is it legal?
I don't think so.
Wow. Okay.
But maybe there's no law that says you can't do it. But I don't think it's, it's not something we've looked into ever. So,
are there therapies that only the billionaires of the world can afford?
No. I think all the therapies available today can be reached by the common man.
Really?
Yeah.
Even on an international level?
On an international level.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about stem cell therapy a little bit.
Yeah.
Is it true that it's painful when you inject?
It's not painful at all because, it's a needle prick. Just like how you collect blood, you put a needle into your vein and collect blood. So the same thing, we put a needle into the pelvic bone. That's the bone above the hip bone.
We give local anesthesia. That's painful.
No, it's not really painful. We give local anesthesia that, the child or the patient doesn't feel it also because it's like your dental work, When your dental work is being done, you don't feel it because they give you local anesthesia. They are drilling all that, but you don't feel it. Maybe afterwards for a couple of days, they may be lit, but we give painkillers. So it's not painful at all. It's just it's a needle prick. There is no cut. There is no stitch. There is nothing. You put a needle, take out bone marrow, take it to the laboratory, separate the cells, we use mononuclear cells, and then we inject it into the spinal fluid with a very thin needle. So it's 2 injections, that's all. The beauty of this treatment is very safe. It's a very safe treatment. In more than 13,000 patients, there have been no major adverse events, reactions, nothing. It's a very safe treatment.
Do you also inject it into the joints of athletes who have been injured or something like that?
No, we don't. Because I'm a neurosurgeon, I only treat neurological patients.
But this kind of a treatment is
it's being done. Yeah, it's being done. And there are several centers in India that are doing this. So with very good results.
In the case of what? Like if a joint has a problem? Or
Yeah,
something?
joint has a problem. And, if you're in osteoarthritis, they're very good results. Recently, we had a child known to one particular government official, and, she post-COVID had developed what is called vascular, the hip bone it's called avascular necrosis, AVN. And both the joints were gone post-COVID. And all the doctors everywhere told her you have to replace the joint. And that's huge, because if you take out the old joint, put 2 new joints. She's a young girl. She's just about not even 20. And the mother was very upset. I don't want my daughter to have 2 hip joints, from her point of view. She's looking in long term, who will marry my daughter and stuff. And then, although I didn't do it, I identified an orthopedic surgeon who specializes in this. And they actually used cell therapy from the fat. I do it from the bone, they do it from the fat. It was an Australian developed technology, and they used it, and she improved completely. Not only is she walking now, but we did scans, and that vascular necrosis is gone. So somebody who was advised bilateral joint replacements is now completely okay with cell therapy. So that's the magic of cell therapy. It's simple. You just inject it into her. That's it.
What else is it being used for? Like we spoke about the autism angle, like brain defects. Then we spoke about helping your joints if they're inflamed, I have like a repeated case of like tennis elbow. I have like shoulder inflammation. I'm probably going to go in for it at some point. Okay. It's legal, right?
Yeah,
okay, cool. But I intend on going in for it at some point. Again, someone on the show, Chris Gethin, spoke about how he used it for his elbows. So I really want to see what it's about, but what other problems can be sorted out?
So there are several things. For example, there are 2 conditions which are fatal, where there is a very high death rate. There's one particular condition called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. In this condition, every child, every boy dies in their early 20s. It's a 100% death rate, 100%. And here we inject it into the muscles as well as into the spinal fluid also. And we've treated over 2,000 such kids, and we've been able to save the majority of their life. They're all now living beyond 20. So you're asking me actually about what? So muscular dystrophy, it's a condition that is so heart-wrenching. These kids, they develop, so only boys get it, but it gets transmitted through the mother. Okay. Now you can imagine in an Indian setting what torture happens when the family in-laws find out that the mother, because the mother, their son or their grandson is suffering now, and they start developing weakness of the hands and legs. First they start falling, then they can't walk, then they sit, they go in a wheelchair, and then they lose respiration. They all die by their 20s. So it's it's the most painful death on the planet, because it lasts for 15 years. 15 years you see a child going down and he's going to die. We have treated over 2,000 patients. In fact, recently there was a BJP corporator from Vidisha, Madhya Pradesh, who killed himself, his wife, and both his kids of muscular dystrophy. It was a big article in the papers. Can you imagine a man killing his whole family? Because he said, I can't save my children. Because he did not know that it can be treated. Okay. So here is a disease which kills, which can be helped with stem cell therapy. We've already helped. We've got over 15 scientific papers. We've written books on it. In one of our books, Narendra Modi ji has written an introduction. He speaks about this. He's spoken about this in various forums. Then there's this other disease called motor neuron disease, which Stephen Hawking had. There again, there's a 90% death rate in the first 5 years. No solution, because all the neurons die inside. We've treated, again, over 1,000 patients. And we've had good results. We've been able to save quite a substantial amount of people. So in some conditions that cause death, it helps. In some conditions of injury, like spinal cord injury, people who are paralyzed, we are able to make them walk. Brain stroke, where one half of the body stops moving. We've treated them and they respond. But of course, the best results come in children with autism and cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy is slightly different because there the brain is damaged, but the body is affected. So there's stiffness and tightness of the hands and legs, and they're on wheelchairs. And we have all these kids who come to us on wheelchairs, and you do the stem cell therapy, and in 6 months, 1 year, they come to you walking. My God, it's so emotional. To see a kid who's on a wheelchair come back to you walking, it's just something else for me.
When I was a kid, someone had diagnosed me with ADHD.
With ADHD?
Yeah. I think it's definitely there based on how my head works even now. Like I have extremely intrusive thoughts. For example, right now an intrusive thought that's entering in my head is you mentioned nerve cells. I want to know if you can see nerve cells with the human eye.
No, you can't.
You
see
can't,
it. You
right?
can't see it from outside.
Because in India, there's a stereotype where they call veins and arteries, ye dekho nerves dikh rahe hain.
No.
It's not
No,
at
you
all the
can't see
same
it.
thing.
No, you can't.
Okay, but
The only way you can look in the brain is through the, through the eye, the fundus. You can see there's a scope called something called fundoscope, with which you can see the back of the eye. And at the back of the eye, there is a nerve called the optic nerve,
which is an extension of your
the
brain.
Yeah. So that's the only insight you can do. You look into the optic nerve, and all it tells you if the brain is swollen, not swollen. Okay. There's something called papillary edema. But apart from that, you can't look into the brain.
The topic of intuition and sixth sense has come up on this podcast a lot with everyone from cricketers to politicians to people like yourself. There is a school of thought that believes that intuition and sixth sense, being able to predict the near future or events on a particular day, are just an outcome of being able to read pattern recognition better.
Absolutely.
So there's pattern recognition that everyone goes through, and then maybe people who have a sharper so-called sixth sense are able to read that.
Absolutely correct. That's the neural basis. So because these kids with autism, now why we know? Because we are looking at their scans, and we are looking at not just what's not working, we are looking at what's working more. Okay. So it's like, if you went to a gym and did a lot of work with your arms would be stronger. Okay. So these kids have a part of the brain that you can't see it. Once we fix their brains with stem cell therapy, we start seeing that.
Okay.
So
fair. Do you look into this whole third eye angle? Like when people say, oh, your third eye opens up. Some people believe that it's the pineal gland. I've read a spiritual book which said it's actually the activation of the medulla oblongata. Have you read any of this stuff?
Well, I've heard about it. I've read about it, but there is a neuroscience base to it. Okay. So it's, again, our brain has the ability to pick up things that maybe you and I cannot recognize. For example, say a dog's brain. A dog can pick up a sound that you and I can't. There is a particular sound wave that we can't hear, but they can. There is something that is normal for us that is difficult for these kids. For example, they have a lot of sensory issues. Sound sometimes trouble them. What sound is normal for us, it becomes excessive for them. So the third eye that we talk about, okay, it's yes, the pineal gland has a role, but the pineal gland is more about our day and night and our adrenal pattern. There's a pituitary gland that controls all the hormones, and below that there's an area called the hypothalamus above the pituitary gland that actually controls this thing, and all our emotional state, all our emotional brain, and the middle brain that I'm talking about directly communicates with the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland controls all our hormones. So every hormone, from the thyroid to the every other hormone, the pancreas, our adrenals, our sexual hormones are all controlled by the pituitary, which is directly controlled by our emotional brain. So there is a strong connect. Now, what happens is when in a particular state, all these things get activated, and then you are able to, it's like a great athlete can do things. Let's say a gymnast can do things that you and I can't do.
In a state of flow.
In a state of flow, yeah. So a lot of things get synced, and when they get synced, they're able to see things. Many of our gurus, our spiritual gurus, have the ability to do that. They can actually see you, and they can talk to you about a whole lot about who you are and what you do, simply because they're able to pick up what you said. It's not just patterns; it's everything. It's in your eyes, it's in your body language, it's in your facial muscles, it's in your hand movements, it's how you sit. It's in, like, every little thing says a story. Now, you and I can't put it together, but maybe somebody can put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and
okay.
That's how it is.
Do you have anything to say about DMT, ayahuasca, and all these? No. Is there any truth to the fact that, this is what you read about on the internet, that your pineal gland releases DMT when you dream right before the moment of your death? Yeah. Is there any truth to that? There
are theories to that, okay, but this is not something I've actively researched. So normally fair. I don't talk about things that I haven't researched. I've read about it, I know about it, but I'm not the expert. I've not gone into that in great detail.
Does your mind, as a neurosurgeon, kind of deep dive into all these spiritual things that
Absolutely.
So what is the aspect of Indian or Eastern spirituality that you think is exactly in sync with modern day neuroscience, other than like pranayama and yoga and what we spoke about, like Kundalini Jagran and all these things? Are you familiar with these?
Yeah.
So what is fascinating for you as a neuroscientist? You are a neuroscientist.
Yeah. Okay, so actually it's very interesting, because whatever is said spiritually, whatever is said in our ancient texts, the Vedas and the Upanishads and everything else, you take that and then you take the writing of scientists like Einstein, Rutherford and all that, and you see they're actually a match. In fact, there's a wonderful book called Tao of Physics by Fritz of Capra. You must read that book. And the cover of the book, actually, there is a picture of Shiva as Nataraj, and it's superimposed, I don't know now that on the atom, our atom. Finally, if you go, and that the Nataraj is a form of the atom. Nucleus, yeah. So in that book, the whole book is nothing but something from the Upanishad and something from Einstein. And the whole book is just a flow of science and spirituality. Spirituality is an explanation of science to people who did not know about science. I mean, at that time, you could not talk about all this. So the same thing was put in an easy to understand manner. Okay. Today, in other words, science is validating our spirituality. Okay. Whatever was said earlier, okay, science is sort of proving it, validating it to be correct. So they actually are looking at the same thing, just you're looking at it differently. Here you're looking at it from base of what's happening in the laboratory, and there you're looking at it from a larger perspective that an ordinary man can understand.
Sure.
Basically, at the end, there's this concept of what is called everything, nothing. Okay, so it's like, suppose I take Ranveer, I break you down. So you are your skin, bones, heart, liver, kidney. I break that down. It's tissues, your cells, and then finally, what are they? There are proteins and there are fats and all that, and there's water. So big chunk of you is water. So let's just take water. What is water? H2O. Okay, so H is hydrogen, O is oxygen. So what is oxygen? Is basically a proton. Okay, and it's got electrons going around it. So if I go deep down into you, you're a collection of protons and electrons. What are electrons? They're bundles of energy which are rotating around the proton, right? Now, if I do the same thing, if I go down to this cup, okay, keep going down to the last, again, I'm going to see the same thing. I'm going to see protons because at the fundamental level. The same thing is true of a tree in Africa, of the snow on the North Pole, of a rock on the moon, of piece of dust in a galaxy far away. So when you go down to the fundamental level of who we are, it's actually all the same. Okay.
Protons and electrons.
Okay. So when you go down to nothing, because after that there is nothing, you also see everything. Okay. Because and if you see most, whether you read about Buddha or Mahavir, they actually talk of the same thing, that everything and nothing is the same. So when you go down there, you become part of everything. And a lot of power of prayer or of intention, of willing is that, because when you vibrate at that level, things happen because it's all the same. I mean, if you start seeing things, so when you will for something, you actually, what happens at that level affects things everywhere else. So there is a difference between everything, nothing, and something. Okay, let me try to make it simple. Let's say an ocean is made of, water, drops of water. So if you have a drop of water coming onto the beach, now it is something. Why is it something? Because there's a drop and what is around that is not a drop. So it is something, but it is powerless. It's just lying there. It's a drop. It is something, but it's a drop. And we keep believing we are something. Now, when that drop, let's say, goes back into the ocean, can you see it? It becomes nothing. But it also becomes part of everything. It's part of the ocean. Okay? It's got the entire power and strength of the emotion of the waves of a tsunami and everything else. So we keep believing we are something. And when we keep thinking we are something, because it's all ego, pride, yevo, me, my, if you can shift and see yourself as nothing, when you make yourself nothing, you also become part of everything. You don't become everything. You become part of everything. So most spirituality and science merges this. The whole concept of everything, nothing.
Okay. I would love to see a conversation between you and Dr. Sid Warrior at some point. We've had a lot of conversations like this. Yeah. He's a young neurologist, and I'd love to just see you two go at it. What I do wish to say is something that he taught me on this show, which is that, and please correct me if I'm wrong because you're the authority here, there is a part of your brain that identifies with the self.
Yes.
In terms of when I stretch out my arm, I know exactly where my fingertip is. Now, I know where my fingertip is because my brain is telling me that's the edge of your body. And beyond that is air and the camera, etc. and the rest of the world. parallelly, there's the limbic system, which is the animalistic
that's
side
right.
of your brain. All your roti, kapda, makan,
absolutely.
all your instinctual behaviors. I believe that one of the theories is that when you keep meditating and you go till the point of nirvana or moksha, enlightenment, because that's the basis of all advanced meditations that you can find in all these Indian yoga schools, that you keep meditating, you keep practicing your yoga up till the point where you reach nirvana. But physiologically and neurologically, what's probably happening, there's two things. One, you're gaining complete control over your limbic system.
Absolutely. That's correct.
Your upper brain is becoming the more dominant brain. Because you said that life is just a series of your upper brain and your lower brain fighting. But the second thing is that this part of your brain that identifies with the self, with the ego, reduces in activity completely. Where you then realize that the tip of my fingers is not actually the end of me. It's probably way beyond that. And then I'm sure there's some more stuff that happens that you can't articulate in words. But I've been reading a lot about the effects of deep meditative states on the brain. That's what fascinates me, even though I'm not a neuroscientist, but I'm getting to learn a lot through the show. I know for a fact that I've had some very deep meditations where 45 minutes into an hour in, I'm still meditating. I know that I'm not asleep, but I also don't know my name or my gender or what I am or who I am.
Really?
I just know I'm like meditating. Because at this point, I'm not chanting the chant is chanting me. So I would like to know what your theory is about the neuroscience of whatever I said.
No, whatever you said is completely accurate, okay? And what meditation does really is, gives more control to your higher brain over the lower brain. That's the fundamental of meditation. And it is so... And eventually, what is nirvana? If you read the description of nirvana, it is basically when you realize you are nothing. You come down to your nothingness and then you become part of everything. So the fundamental of that is, as long as we believe we are something, you can never experience, because then something can be hurt. Something can be, anything that is something can be hurt, can be damaged. And I learned this in a very interesting lesson. When I was a medical student, I went to learn judo at a class in Dadar, and I'm the 6 foot thing, and he said first lesson, he called a small kid, and he said, try to hit him. So I can't hit a kid. He said, no, you have to do it. That's the first step. Try to hit him. So I did this and tried to hit him. And what the kid did is he just moved. He was standing here. He moved to the side. He took my hand and flipped me over, Okay. Now, as normally what you do, if you hit me, I'm something, so I hit back, I counter. So this is life. That is what we do in our life. You do this, I do this, and we go on. What did he do? He just moved to the side. No, so what was there now? Nothing. Okay. And then what he used is he took my hand and he flipped me. He used my energy. And that's when I realized the power of nothing. See, there was nothing there. When he moved away, there was nothing to hit. And then he just did this and I went flying on the other side. A small kid tossed a 6. Do you understand the concept? So it's when you reach that stage of nothingness, okay, which comes from meditation. But I also say, see, meditation, I believe in meditation. I believe in the power of meditation. However, there's an entire younger generation, okay, who will not accept meditation as something that they would like to do, And for them, I propose a different form of meditation is having a purpose in life. That is also meditative. If there's something that drives you, if there's something that motivates you, if there's something that wakes you up in the morning, if there's something that keeps you thinking at night, that is a meditative state. Like for you, this show, this is your life now, okay? It's your form of meditation, okay? So once you have that, it's an alignment with the thinking of Napoleon Hill that to be successful, have a definite chief aim in life. Once you have something, then that becomes a meditative state because your mind is now completely, aligned with that. And then in that, once again, you become nothing, you become part of everything. And the most miraculous things happen. When you reach the stage of nothing, everythingness, the right people, and when there's something that you want with all your heart, there's a difference between willing and wishing. All of us wish, you wish you are rich, you wish you're successful. There's a difference between willing and wishing. Will is something which you intend, where your entire mind, your body, your heart, your cells, your brain, the entire brain power, 100 million neurons that you have are now burning with that one thing. And then what that does is it attracts the right amount of money, it attracts the right amount of resources, it attracts people. So whatever you want, instead of you going to get it, it comes to you.
Okay. Yeah. How much of the brain is truly locked up? Because there is an internet theory that says that 90% of your brain is actually locked up.
Yeah, so we don't have accurate figures on that, but I would say it could be anywhere between 50 and I would say about at least half our brain is not completely open to us.
What is in the half?
So our subconscious, our hurts, our fears, our, whatever has happened in the past that we don't want to confront is all locked up over there. Okay. So that's why meditation, so either meditation, because meditation relieves that, or having a purpose in life, something to do, something that matters to you. That's why, I started this conversation by asking you, I want to know what made you the Ranveer you are today, because that is important. That is a form of meditation. You are actually showing everybody else that when you walk your own path, you can do whatever is that. This is something that mattered to you, right? So yes, sitting in meditation is great. It's wonderful. There's nothing more powerful than meditation, right? But there's a generation today that may not want to do it because they think of meditation as something older people do. Yoga, it's to be done in an ashram, and So I'm saying having a purpose is another form of meditation. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No, I hear you. It's basically when you're talking about dhyana or meditation that you sit down for, it always boils down to one of two things: coming back to your breath, or coming down to a mantra, or coming back to a visualization. That's the third one. You're basically coming back to an anchor. What you're trying to say is that as long as you have that one force that's anchoring your life, your neurons align to
absolutely all your neurons are aligned.
Peaceful.
Yeah. And there's happiness, there's contentment, there's joy. You make a difference. And the fascinating thing I found is when you're like that, things come to you. Otherwise you're going on life chasing. You're going and trying to get things. Once this is there, the right thing, the right people. Whatever it is. I mean, I started off working at Sion Hospital. We started practice. Today I have two hospitals. I have a neurological hospital. I've got an anti-aging hospital. We are shortly opening up a facility in the Bahamas. There's a huge project. We are starting our work there. And that's what a great pride that, we are going to be right there. The Americas doing the same work. Everything came. The people came, the resources came, the money came, I didn't go looking for anything. It actually came to me. Okay. So when you're in that state, everything comes to you. So once you get that, and that is meditation as well. And in that you become healthier, your mind is alert, everything else starts moving at a very, very synchronized kind of focus space.
But it's important to take out the worms from the brain first.
Yeah, okay. Which I have. The example I like to give is, the sun can shine on this piece of paper for 1,000 years and nothing will happen. But if you put a lens, what happens? It burns. That if you put a lens, it burns. So what won't happen with the sun rays for 100 years or 1,000 years? Just putting a lens, it burns that paper. Why? Because the rays get concentrated. Okay. So the moment we have that, bring about that, things happen. That's what brings about change. That's what brings about innovation. Okay. We have evolved from cavemen to this present state because of that, because of people who have evolved, innovated, disrupted the present way of thinking and gone ahead. And like you, walked your own path. I am fascinated by what you've done with your life. Okay, it's like, again, from a neuroscience perspective, because it's just so amazing that you had everything and you chose to follow your own path. You made the path by the walking. You didn't walk on a established road. You walked, and the path got made by your walking. And I'm sure a lot of people try to copy what you do, but it's not easy. It's not easy to recreate this. I admire that about you, that you chose, and it's not. I know it must not have been easy. I'm sure it wasn't easy. And but you did it, and you've done something with it. And what you're doing now is amazing. You're reaching out to lakhs of people and giving them insights they might otherwise never have had.
On a very spiritual level, I feel there's also circumstances that dictate too many outcomes of your life. Like, I think that's been the repeated lesson of mine even through the show, that all the most established people that I've met through the show, like yourself, have been established heavily because of the circumstances that were in their life from childhood.
Absolutely. That's so true.
Creating your likes and dislikes, etc. like I didn't become a doctor because of my fear of blood, because when I was a kid, this is like probably my earliest memory, and my mother says that this happened when I was 2.5 or 3. I remember being in a pool of blood and my sister was like looking down at me, knowing that she's done something wrong. I remember her face, and this is probably my earliest memory. And there's a big scar on my right hamstring, which my mom says was the first time she had to suture me up because my leg had gotten stuck in an exercise cycle that my sister was pedaling on. And all I remember is like a pool of blood. I don't remember feeling pain, but I remember seeing fear on my sister's face. And then I remember my mom stitching me up and seeing fear on her face. And I don't remember the pain, but I remember that. Probably just had a negative association with blood, which didn't allow me to even think of medicine as a career.
Okay.
So
that was circumstance. That's true. So circumstances do decide. I mean, but one of the things I suggest, and this is a lesson, this is an interesting lesson I learned in 2001. It's just, I'll very briefly say it. In 2001, there was a massive earthquake in Kutch. Right. You must have been very young. Bhuj, yeah. So I was working at the Sion Hospital and I volunteered to be part of the relief team. I said, I want to go, My hospital was saying, no, you're too senior to go. I said, no, I'm going to go. So we were airlifted and we went... And we were posted on the 3rd or 4th day. We were asked to go to a village very close to the epicenter. And when we went there, half the people in that village were dead. Half, and all the houses were down. And we set up a bullock cart. We used to operate on a bullock cart. Actually morning to evening operate on a bullock cart. So, but when we went there, we realized that it was the 4th day when we reached, and we found that they were very well organized. It didn't look like half the people in this place are dead. So in the evening, we used to sit by the fireside. It was very cold. I used to just talk. I said, how come you were, it doesn't look like 100 people are dead in this place. So he told me something interesting that altered my life forever. He said that when this happened, it was on Republic Day, 26 January, early in the morning. The village elders got together all the people who were still surviving. Okay. And only 2 instructions were given. The first instruction, nobody will look at what we have lost. Okay. We will only look at what can still be saved. First. Second, everybody was given a job to do. You look after the kids, you look after food, you arrange blankets, you arrange everybody. It did not matter who you had lost. So the woman who was cooking for us, she had lost her 3 kids, her husband, and her entire house. She happened to be in the farm, so she was saved, but her entire family, her entire home, everything was gone. And what was she doing? She was cooking for us. Okay. And in that moment, I realized that these people in the middle of the worst disaster in their life are not looking at what they've lost. They're looking at what is still there, and their rehabilitation was to do something. I mean, they were all given jobs. It didn't matter. That woman should have been crying and crying and crying, but instead she was serving us. And then I realized in our lives as well, there are things that we have and there are things that we don't have. And where does our mind focus on? What we don't have. We are constantly cribbing and crying and complaining about what we don't have. We are not enjoying what we have. And in that disaster situation, in the situation full of death, I learned a basic lesson of life, that there are things we have and there are things we don't have. We need to accept what we don't have and make the best of what we have, And if you could just do that, it's like a bottle that is half full. This cup, I can say it's half full and you can say it's half empty, and we both are right. You look at the half empty, you're going to be unhappy. You look at the half full and you're going to be content. So since then, my life's principle has been, and that's, you see, from there, this is what happened. When I started treating kids with autism, I started looking at what they have. The whole world looks at what autism kids don't have. They look at the fact that they can't talk. They look at their behavioral issues. And I look at what is special in them. And here again, I want to, of course, Narendra Modi is I'm a bit of his fan. I'm a hero. But he did something amazing. Earlier, the word for disability in India was Viklang. Viklang means disabled. And Narendra Modi ji officially changed that word to Divyang, or specially gifted. What an amazing, just changing that word. When you say Viklang, you look at what they don't have. When you say Divyang, you look at what they have. So if in life we could just do that, because nobody has everything. Okay, somebody has health but may not have wealth. Somebody has wealth but doesn't have love. Somebody has love but doesn't have prosperity. And if you could just keep focusing on what we have, life, everything shifts. And this lesson from earthquake in Kutch is something which the hospital, so when people come to a hospital, that's what they say. They say everywhere else we go, the focus is on what the kids can't do. Over here in your hospital, the entire approach is on what they can. And what if we brought that about in our lives? We looked at what we have. Everything would change. You can't change so one of my life's principles is you can't change the circumstances of what. I just had a patient recently tell me something very nice. He says, it doesn't matter how the story of your life started. What matters is how the story of your life ends. Because that is in your control. How you started, So just instead of focusing on how it started, let's focus on how it ends. And if you could just do that one very simple thing, I think, a lot of things will turn around. I don't know if this was interesting to you and your listeners, and
it was a great conversation. I think you're loaded with information.
Yeah.
And it was just a matter of time before this information would be revealed to the audiences. So it's great that podcasts have now picked up in India.
Yeah.
And they're growing.
Yeah.
I hope to speak to you in Hindi very soon.
Oh, we do Hindi. I'm great. Yeah. I'm happy to do Hindi.
I think everything we've spoken about, first I needed to traverse through it. And now the next time I see you, we'll be creating a Hindi podcast for the masses. So, Doctor, thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
Yeah, enjoyed a lot just learning from you. There's a lot of stuff you've seen and figured. Looking forward to see everything that comes up in the near future. Okay.
Pleasure is mine. Take care.
Thank you, sir. So that was the episode for today. I intend on bringing on a lot more doctors on TRS. So please tell me in the comment section if you know about anyone else who should be on the show. Tell me what you thought about this episode. Tell me how we can improve these biology-based conversations. Lots more to explore, lots more to learn. And all I want to say is that TRS will be back soon. Another atom bomb of knowledge is coming at you on another episode of TRS.